Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylee and today I'm going to do my very first wrap up. Today I'm going to do my June wrap up, which also is when I took part in Whatever-You-Want-a-Thon, and Whatever-You-Want-a-Thon was a month-long reading readathon in June, which basically also celebrates whatever you want. There were different teams, but also celebrated Pride because it was Pride Month as well. And you'll see as well, there's a lot of books that I read that I'm very passionate about that do celebrate Pride and LGBT, and basically that was the main thing. So I absolutely loved it. Thank you to Maddie from Browsing Broad for hosting the readathon. It was amazing. I think everybody got into the team spirit. I can't wait to see the results. They should be tonight and it should be past when you're seeing this. But I had a really good reading month. I read in total 16 books and had one DNF. So without further ado, let's get into the books. And the first book I'm going to talk about is actually the DNF, and this is The Three Stigmata of Parma Outrage. That's a mouthful. And this is by Philip K. Dick. I DNF'd this because this is a sci-fi dystopian that basically follows a world where basically you enter realities that escape your normal life. There's a couple of drugs and competitiveness with this new drug coming out. So basically you enter this world, you live this new life. I didn't get that far into it, to be honest, at the time. This is pretty much one of the prompts was out of your comfort zone. And sci-fi is still something that is very much out of my comfort zone. The writing on this really confused me, or I was certainly maybe not in the mood. It's one I'm possibly, it's actually my boyfriend's book. I wanted to have a go at it because I want to read more kind of classic sci-fi, but I could not get my head around it. It's one I probably will get back in the future, but for now, just now, I think I'm going to leave it and maybe start with some of his other works. For example, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is inspired by Blade Runner, which I have seen the film and I probably would know what is following along, but for now I'm going to DNF this. I actually read was actually a series and a reread. That would be the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. I love this series. I actually read part of it last year and reread most of it for the readathon, except for part 4, which came out recently. This is just the sweetest, wholesome, gorgeous series ever. It's basically boy meets boy. It involves Nick and Charlie, and Charlie is gay but he has been bullied about it. He meets Nick, who kind of sticks up for him. He discovers he has feelings for him, and although he thought he was for straight, he discovered that he is actually bi. So and it's basically their journey, like all the things a relationship goes through homophobia from some of their not so good friends, and bullying. The fourth part actually goes into a whole load of mental rep. It has been following the series. It does go into suicidal thoughts and eating disorders, and it's basically exploring the fact that you can try and help somebody, but somebody really has to help themselves. And it's just that's like sometimes love isn't enough. That person has to work through it themselves. So it's a really good series. I highly recommend. I love this series so much, and 5 stars all round. I love this series. But yes, definitely recommend. The next book I read was middle grade, and that is Rainbow Grey by Lauren Elliott Anderson. This is the same author that did the Amelia Fang books that I have not read and really want to now. This is a middle grade, and it's basically follows Rainbow Grey, who doesn't have any powers, but she lives in the Weatherlands, and everybody else, all of her friends, have a power, but she doesn't. So she's studying hard for this, but one day she discovered this this mysterious this mysterious power, and she discovered that she may have powers of her own, and this is possibly regarding a rainbow. This is such a sweet middle grade. It also involves the most sweetest cloud called Nim, and it's got who is there. I also got some gorgeous illustrations, and look at that cover. It is gorgeous. Although this is not LBG+, it's just such a good wholesome story. This is such a wholesome story. I loved it a bit. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely adore it, and I can't wait to read more of Laura's work. It's just so heartwarming and lovely. I can't wait to see more of Nim as well. He had my heart. But yes. Next book I read is actually a little bit also out of my comfort zone, because I don't read a lot of romance, and this is Get a Life, Crawley Brown by Talia Hebert. This is the first in the Brown series trilogy, following each of the sisters. I think Chloe is the oldest sister. It basically follows her. She is living with basically a disability, fibromyalgia, and basically she makes a list of all the things after a near-death experience by nearly being hit by a car. She makes a list for all the things that she wants to do to live her life, basically, and those are: enjoy our drunk night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have a meaningful but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. And through this, she finds Red through this, and it's initially Emity's lovers kind of thing. It's so funny and very, very schemy. I really liked it. I didn't think I would like it as much, but the hype was certainly there. There's a reason why this book is so good. For me, I don't really read a lot for it, and I don't really generally read a lot of contemporary, but I thought this was 4 stars. I loved this for it. I just don't know that much about that much. I don't read that much contemporary, but for me it was very funny. And again, there was a little cat that she rescues as well called Smudge, and yeah, that just had my heart, you know. But it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it, and I wait to continue the series further. The next book I read was In the River's Dark by A.M. Strickland. This is a YA fantasy, I believe, and this basically involves kind of blood magic. This is the Illumicrate edition with the gorgeous sprayed edges. I had my eye on this one because it really does sound up my street. But basically this is kind of a slightly political fantasy. So basically there are these bloodlines, and if you basically have magic, you have to be assigned basically a dead spirit to keep track on you, and there's a certain bloodlines that are kind of wanted, so it's almost a little bit dystopian as well, which one of the things I really do like in fantasy. I do like the blending of the genres a bit. This follows Rowan, who basically her father had the magic and is taken away, and he tries to hide her. But it takes off from there where she is actually captured and assigned this dead spirit to look after her, and it's all about the actual blood magic and the death of like preserving the family lines. But there is a darker plot regarding this. It's almost kind of, I wouldn't say vampire, but it does feel kind of like necromancy kind of thing. It really good. It just didn't hit the mark in some bits for me. I would like a little bit more explaining of the world. This is also LBGT+. But yeah, this was a really good book. I really enjoyed this. I think this is standalone. It did wrap up quite nicely. I just would like to know a little bit about the world. I do find sometimes with like YA fantasy does give me enough. But I really did like this. And I would definitely recommend it. But yes, 4 stars for this. The book that I read was The Gravity Rush by Phil Stamper. This is a book I've had for a while. This was one of my first book boxes, and I've been trying to read some of them. This basically is a YA contemporary, and it basically follows Carl, who is essentially a blogger. He does this kind of space kind of blog kind of thing. But his father is invited to NASA to take part being one of the astronauts on this kind of competition. So he's a blogger, and there is an official show, and they don't want him blogging, so to take away their official limelight. Carol also meets basically Leon, who is another family, because it is basically kind of like Big Brother. It's kind of like a reality TV show where they follow the astronauts and their families, and everything is meant to be perfect for the television show. So he meets Leon, and they basically, yes, there's a little bit of a love interest there. This was very cute, the only thing I'd like is maybe a little bit more of it. I'd like to see a little bit more. Being a contemporary, I don't read that much of it. I have been trying it a little bit more, but for me, it was lovely and it was cute, but I didn't absolutely love it. Although I did really like the blogging kind of thing for it. I found that quite interesting, and this like competition of it. But yeah, for me this would be a 3 stars. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, but yeah, I would recommend it if you do really like this kind of thing, if YA contemporary is more your thing. But for me, I found it just a little bit slow. I would just be looking for a little bit more. But yes, I still would recommend. The next book that I read was The Outrage by William Hussey. This is a dystopian basically set in a world where basically being queer or being homosexual or any other thing is basically illegal. This is basically, it's an alternative world. Basically something happened. Basically, what split off from our own, because all the things that kind of happened with LGBT rights and everything like that happened to our world happened in this world as well. But then there was this thing called the outrage. It basically led to everybody that is queer being illegal and treated really badly. They have no rights. They go to prison. The schools are basically policed, and basically it is a really heart-wrenching story into how that is explored. And I'll read the blurb on it. It's like, welcome to England. Here are rules for everything: what to say, what to think, who to hate, who to love. Your safety is assured as long as you follow the rules. Gabriel is a natural-born rule-breaker, and his biggest crime of all, being gay. Gabriel's secret must be kept, not only to protect himself, but to protect his boyfriend, Eric, because Eric's father, the chief inspector of Derek's investigations, the man who poses the biggest threat on both their lives. It's basically their journey. I'm not going to really go too much more into this because it would kind of spoil it, but it's certainly a world where like prejudiced as Rose. I would certainly give trigger warnings for this book, and quite lately so the book actually does have trigger warnings. I'll read them out. Trigger warnings. This book is set in a future England following a takeover by the far-right government. The following text contains homophobia, reference to ethnic cleansing, self-harm, reference to suicide, scenes of violence, and some readers might find distressing or offensive. I would certainly go. But seeing that it was a really, really interesting read, I really liked it. I would, and I think this is because it was YA, I'd like to see a little bit more of the world explored. I gave this a 4. That's the only reason it didn't hit a 5, because I really enjoyed this. Very, very interesting read. I wouldn't say it was a happy read, but I would say it's certainly really interesting, and how scarily how things could go and are still going in some countries. So yeah, it's worth a really good read for it's a very eye-opening read, and I would advise anybody read it. But yes, I really, really enjoyed that. 4 stars, definitely good. I read was actually a graphic novel, and this was from a series that it's actually on Netflix, but I actually did know about years ago, but I didn't actually know so much about it, and that is Jupiter's Legacy by Mac Miller and Wilfred Torres. I didn't actually know that Mac Miller's was actually from not far from me in Coatbridge. One of my relatives actually said, and told he's an awesome guy. But basically this follows a world where it's basically, I would say it was a grown-up Incredibles. It basically follows superheroes' lives outside of their what the kind of things they go through in their everyday lives. This is actually what they say is like volume 1, but the order of it is quite mixed up, but they do recommend you read this one first, because the future volumes follow their kids. I previously picked it up and didn't know what was going on, so I've read back through this one. This one actually does go into some quite hard topics, some obviously trigger warnings as well. This is set in the 50s, so it does have some homophobia. In fact, one of the superheroes is scared of showing himself because he has a job, he has his day job, he has a superhero, and he also is gay, so he's scared about that being found out. But at the end of the day, he does find support in his fellow superheroes, so it is okay. But it does explore that kind of thing, and that's one of this perspective. It does follow a few others. There also is another one that I didn't quite like, but was one of the characters. I would give trigger warnings for for cheating, and also like suicide. The fact that this was a kind of grittier Incredibles, it's just completely. I don't think this is completely my thing for it, and it did actually, even though the kind of things were wrong, some of the themes in this I didn't quite agree with. So, but I will be reading the other ones because I'm interested in that, because it is kind of Scottish authors. One of the other artists that did the other one is Frank Quigley, and he's actually from Glasgow, not far from me. And he's an amazing artist as well. So yeah, I would give this 3 stars. I would recommend, especially if you're into superhero. I would recommend, especially if you're into your superhero comics. There's a little bit of a grittier feel to it, but it didn't completely blow me away. So the next book I read was The House of Chicken Legs by Sophia Anderson. I previously read The Girl Who Speaks Bear by her, loved it and wanted to read more of her work, so I picked this one up. This basically follows the House of Chickleg and Baba Yaga, which is Russian-inspired folklore, and it follows basically America, who basically dreams of a normal life where the house stays in one place enough for her to make friends, but her house has chicken legs and moves without warning. For America, grandmother is a Baba Yaga who guides spirits between this world and the next. America longs to change her destiny and set to break free from her grandmother's footsteps, but her house has other ideas. It's basically about finding yourself in the world, about finding yourself and family. It's such a heartwarming book. Sophie Anderson's writing is amazing. It's so cute, it's got so many good messages. I loved this book, and it does have a few illustrations of the between it, including Jack, who's a jackdaw, who I absolutely loved as well. But yeah, it was amazing. There's not much else I can say. It was like 5 stars. Really, really liked it, and can't wait to read more of Sophie Anderson's work. So yes. The next book that I read was a series that I have been meaning to get through for absolutely years. Since getting back into reading last year because of lockdown, I have been aiming to read and finish a few series. I got to maybe the second or the third book, and so I've gone back and reread them and finished off the series, and that was one of my aims going forward, especially for this year. So the next book that I read was Inheritance by Christopher Lee. This is book 4 in the Inheritance cycle. The first book is Eragon. This basically follows a boy who basically it is a very chosen one trope. He's a farm boy. He basically is hunting in the woods one day, and he comes across this flash of light, which turns out to be a blue stone, which he takes home and discovers it hatches, and it's a dragon who he names Saphira. Basically goes on just this epic journey of him trying to avenge his uncle, who is unfortunately killed where the enemies come looking for the dragon egg, because in this world it is ruled over by a dark lord called Galbatorix, and basically he is out for revenge on who killed his uncle. But along the way he finds out that he finds more skills. He meets up with his storyteller of the town, who is more than he appears to be, whose name is Braun, and he teaches him basically how to learn magic, because he does have this bond with Saphira, where he is able to harness magic through them, and he's also able to communicate through them. They have this big fantastic bond between them. So basically the journey, this is basically the conclusion to this. I have been following the series for a while, although it's not my absolute favourite. It's a very easy read, if not a little bit bulky in places. Overall, I do feel, although I do love the nostalgia of the series, I do feel that there are pages for me that he has written that is bulked out. There's bits in this that could easily have been bulked out that I personally didn't care about. And some of the lore, it goes on to quite a lot, and if you're into that, fantastic. I just feel that some of the descriptions of some things, like elving things, and some of the descriptions of the scenery, I felt that I was skim reading basically, or I was listening to an audiobook and I just wanted past it. Basically, I do find though, because I was back in this world and back in with these characters, it is a very relaxing read. It's a very relaxing listen, because I did listen to it when I was not as busy at work. So yeah, I would certainly give this a free star overall. It's not a bad book, it's just that it does feel like some of the tropes in it, the chosen one, have been used before, but it does have, it feels like basically Lord of the Rings and Star Wars combined, but a lot of those tropes are, and I do feel like they were borrowed from them. There's some things that were like very like close to both series. But he was a very young writer when he wrote this. He was 16 and got, like, I will say commend him for writing a book series like this, because I couldn't have wrote it. So yeah, I do know he has got another series of work, which is sci-fi series, and the first book is already out, and it's called To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and I think it's a giant space opera kind of book. I'm not sure if I would be picking it up. We'll see. It's not on my completely list, but if you do like the series and you want to continue with his that book is allowed. Following on from that, I also did complete the series and read the short novel. I would say there's kind of I would say it was part short story, part like long kind of small novel basically, because it does follow different like tales, and if it's one is basically following a dragon, the other's following one of the characters from who's a witch in the main series, and also follows kind of another tale. So it is a kind of short story for this. I did find some of the stories quite charming on this. I really did actually like it. It was quite a nice little cute read. But again, I always give this 3 stars along with the main series. The only book that I did give, I think, gave 4 stars was the first book, and that is, I did feel that was the strongest in the series. But yeah, overall, 3 stars. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I finished the series, but I don't know if I would read it again. But I do know this is a beloved series. As a beloved series myself. Like I said, don't hate me, but I didn't love it as much as I love some of the other series. So yes. The next book that I read was Docile. This was a highly recommended book by Maddie from Book Buyers and Blog. This basically is another dystopian, and this is basically set in a world where capitalism basically has taken over, and the world basically is in debt. And in this world, basically, the debt is inherited through generations. So basically, you have poor families getting poorer and rich families getting richer. So in this world, if you are in debt and you cannot get out of that, you basically have 2 choices. Either you go to debtor's prison and your family goes to debtor's prison, or you can sell your debt to like a patron who will buy your debt, but in exchange you will become their docile, which is basically a servant or a slave. So basically this follows this follows Elijah and Alex. And Elijah is basically, his family are in debt. His mother basically paid off, became a docile about 10 years ago to pay off some of the debt. Unfortunately, in this world you are given this drug called Dosaline. Basically it gives you, if you take it and you're in service, it basically makes you docile. You don't remember anything, you become completely docile or like subservient. and they basically can do anything with you. I would certainly say lots of trigger warnings for this book, because there were also mentions of if you, for example, if you're in manual labour and you lose a toe and you wake up and you've lost that toe, you know, that anything could happen to you. It does say in this book that they do have some rights for them, but I don't think, it sounds like a lot of them aren't followed. So basically, on hearing his mother, what's happened to his mother, and he doesn't want his sister to be taken. Rather than his sister going for a head, he basically does the Hunger Games things, it's I'll be tribute, and basically puts himself forward to be docile, and where he meets Alex, but he doesn't want to have, because he said what's happened to his mother, he refuses the docile, and it basically is basically examination of what actually happens to Elijah when he becomes essentially a slave to Alex, because he has to basically train him off the dust line, and what happens when that person, and what kind of damage that can do to him. I would say this is not a light read, this is a very heavy read. I really, really liked it. Some people have said this is slightly a slave flick. I would agree on part of that. Some people either absolutely hate this or really, really love it. And I would say this is not a love story. This is basically how things can hurt people, how certain things can hurt people. There, like I said, there's a lot of trigger warnings in here. There is abuse, non-consent, rape, what can affect you on drugs, manipulation. You know, it is very, very, a very, very hard read. Saying that, I really, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed this. The only reason I gave it 4 stars is I just wanted a wee bit more of the world, just a little bit more explained. I do feel like, although I did like the ending, I did like the ending, how it goes, I just guess I wanted to see a little bit more to the world building in this. I would quite happily have a bigger book or another book to this. I would definitely want to see more of this world. If you like a gritty dystopian, if you're a fan of dystopians in general or sci-fi, I would definitely pick this up. But just be aware of the trigger warnings, like I said. But I do like, I read things like this. I like a grittier book, because I like to read about things to be aware that hopefully they will not happen. And yes, that's another case of this. But yes, I highly recommend this. The next book I read, it was actually a series I have been reading through, and this is Beastars, Volume 4, and this is by Paro Itagawa. She's an amazing artist. This is basically, it's also a really, really good anime as well. This basically I would describe, and I've said this before in my blog, as this I would describe as a grown-up Disney's Utopia. The same kind of themes are explored, but more in, I would say, young adult setting. I would say young adult to adult setting, because this series is quite dark, and I wouldn't give this to your kids. But yes, this basically follows some students at this kind of private boarding school, where basically it is a utopia, or zootopia as you said, where predator animals like carnivores and herbivores are meant to get along. They go to the same classes together. There's a whole load of species as well. You do see like some of the smaller animals going along up in the trees or like alongside some of the bigger animals as well, and it's basically how they all get along. But it does actually explore some really like interesting themes, like is that like Zootopia did, between race and basically prejudice between the prey animals and the predator animals. And basically it is a slice of life, I would say. It would be a coming of age story. It follows the main character who's called Legoshi. He's a grey wolf, and he's a very shy, nervous grey wolf. He's very insecure about himself. He's this big bad looking wolf, but he's actually such a softie. He's part of the drama club that they have, and they're called Beastars basically because Beastars is it's basically the animal who can shows that they can bring unity between the herbivores and the carnivores, and this is basically being pursued by another character called Louis, who is head of the drama club, whereas Legoshi is basically, he's up in the lighting, he's very technical, he's quite a lone wolf as well. It basically, and our story starts basically in the fourth volume, and with basically one of the students being chased, then killed and devoured by an unknown, possibly carnivore, but we don't know yet. So it is a kind of murder mystery as well. But there's also some very dark themes about this, regarding this. In the school, it's very harmonious. The carnivores do not eat meat, they eat meat substitutes, or they eat eggs as well. They're actually provided by some of the chickens on campus as well, which is also a quite fun part in there. But basically, outside of this world, there is a darker theme, and there are some, like I said, some gruesome artwork in here that's absolutely gorgeous, and the artwork is so pretty. But yeah, there is very dark. But if you are into a darker manga that's got kind of murder mystery vibes with a little bit of dystopian, utopian thrown in, then this is definitely you. It's one of my favourites. I can't wait to read the next volume and watch the rest of the series. Yeah, but I definitely recommend it. I've not heard that much outside like manga, like circles read about it. It's certainly one I would put forward for more people to read, because it's one of those mangas that really will grip you, because it's got that whole I've got to find out next kind of vibe. But yes, highly recommend. Please go read it, more people read it. The next book I read was Sabre by Gareth Next. This is a series I've been meaning to finish for so long. I basically read this when it came out. That was a long time ago. But this is basically one of my favourite series, and I've been meaning to continue it because I have read the first 3 books, but not read the prequel, the sequel, and also the short stories. There's also another book coming out from him in November to do with the series, so I thought I'd start this month, as well as it being Rose from Wandering World's favour on it. When I saw that just gave me an excuse to read for the series up until the release of the new one. So basically this follows is a world where there are free magic, which is basically, it would be the register magic, the good magic if you will, and there is free magic, which can be good but is a lot of time bad. So basically in this world, Sabre is one side of the wall, because there's 2 sides. There's the Alistair, which basically is has not as much magic, has some charter magic, where she realised she's in basically a kind of magic schoolish. And there is a wall between Ulster and the Old Kingdom, and the series is called the Old Kingdom series. So the wall is basically built to keep the forces that are evil, who are free magic, out from Ulster. But one day, basically, her father, who is the Aberhorton, who is basically in charge to keep the kingdom in check, to keep the dead spirits from taking over the kingdom. He is basically what you call basically a necromancer, or a kind of good necromancer. He can raise the dead. But he can also banish them into death. And in this world, there's also different gates of death. One day, Sabre will basically find out her father comes to him. He is basically calling her from death, and he sends her bells. And the bells are basically the Aberhorton's some weapons to basically fight the dead. So Sabre basically does not accept that her dad is dead, is gone, so she goes on a mission beyond the wall to the Old Kingdom to basically find her father and basically restore balance to the kingdom. But she's not alone. She is being there is basically a evil spirit uprising who wants to take over the kingdom, and there are dead on her tail. So yeah, it's a fantastic read. It's a very underrated series. I really like it. This book is not my favourite in the series. The next book is actually my favourite in the series, which actually does follow a different character called Lilia. But I love this series so much. This book, for me, is pretty much 5 stars. Technically, it would be 4 because technically the second one is my favourite. But for nostalgia, definitely 5. I love this series so much, and I can't wait to continue in it. But please read it. This is another series I want people to read. Please read. Please read. The next book I read was When You Get the Chance, by co-authors Tom Ryan and Robin Stevenson. I think it's dual written as well, and it's dual perspective. So basically this is a YA contemporary, and look at the cover, it's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. This basically is a YA contemporary set in Toronto or round about the area. It follows Mark and Talia, and they are cousins, but their mum and dad, brother and sister, do not have fallen out, and they haven't been to this cabin they used to go to every summer with their grandparents every year. And they're wondering why it's not they're not going there anymore. But but the family is brought together. But unfortunately, a tragic death in the family. Their granddad dies, and they go there to support their granddad, to get sort of with a funeral, etc., and to support in general. But there is the matter of the cabin where they went to, because unfortunately the grandma can no longer really look after it, although she does want to. She's in this little condo in Toronto, but she does want to leave it to the family. But she does say to get them to work together. If she says, "I'm leaving it up to you," but unfortunately, before that decision can be made, she does have a fall and has to go to hospital. So Mark and Talia's parents have to drive her to hospital and stay with her, but they do leave them in charge of the sorting things out in the cabin and tidying it up for possible sale. They also do leave Mark's little sister as well. But unfortunately, Mark has other ideas. Go to Pride, and instead of focusing on the family and the family issues, he fixes up what he thinks is his granddad's car, and has a plan to go to Pride. And Talia, basically, her girlfriend is also in Toronto, and she does also want to meet up with her. So yeah, it's basically them being a little bit selfish to get there, instead of focusing what matters with the family. But they do uncover, they try to uncover a secret, why their parents fell out in the first place, and it's also a discovery about that. For me, I didn't absolutely love it. I gave this a 3 stars, or 3.5 stars. Although I loved the journey to Pride, it was kind of let down to the fact that, but there's more important things. To me, this felt like a story that was like I'd rather it was just about a purely Pride story with like found family and stuff like that, or a coming together, like grieving family story, and it just felt a wee bit disjointed because the characters in this, I felt, were a little bit selfish, because if it were me and in that situation, I wouldn't be thinking by myself. I'd be thinking my gran, this is the situation, I'd be on that. I would push past. I wouldn't want to go to Pride, because to me, like, that would kind of ruin for me. There's all about going to Pride to get your mind off it, but it just felt inappropriate to me to go to Pride. Fair enough if you don't have that family support, but they did. Their parents seemed really good, even though they didn't like get on, but it just felt, I don't know, I found the characters a bit selfish. I didn't really like them. Like, they weren't bad characters. I mean, they had their faults, which is good. But it just, for me, it felt disjointed, and I really wanted to love this because I absolutely love the cover, and I love parts of it, just not as a whole. But yeah, 3 stars. I still would recommend, but please, for me, that didn't quite hit it. So yeah. Bit of a sore throat now because that was quite a few books. I had a really good reading month. I'm looking forward to what happens in July. I will admit I'm going to take it a little bit easier next month. I'm going to let Mood read a little bit more. I am planning to take part in Steph from Steph Loves. She's doing a bingo board. That's not a read-a-thon, just a little challenge that she set up, and she asked other people if they want to join in. So she set up a little bingo board with sci-fi. I do plan to try and read a little bit more sci-fi, so I will be certainly looking into that. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope I've given some good recommendations. Please read some of the books that I like. If you have read some of them, let me know. If you're interested in reading some of them, let me know. If you've got any other recommendations, please let me know. I love to discuss, like to talk to people, like I said. But yes, if you like this, please subscribe, please like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.